Howdy guys, it's Joe here, and recently in playing competitive and even some quick play, I've been hearing a lot of people saying, Overwatch is the most toxic game of all time. Blizzard games, the most toxic games of all time. Most toxic communities, and things like this. And I'd like to talk about this a little bit. I really personally do actually like a community a decent amount, and I kind of like to talk about why people are saying this type of thing. Now, before I really start going into this really way too in-depth, I'd also like to say that I'm not a person that's only played, in the higher rankings. Even Season 1 myself, I played from rank like 47 up to like rank 56, so I played in that discrepancy. As well with this though, I've played on my friend's account that's been silver in ranked and in quick play games, and I've also played on my Smurf, which has been in gold. I've also played in my account right now, which has been in diamond, so I feel like I do have a pretty good amount of levels of play that I've played in, so hopefully that can make my experiences relate a little bit more to you guys's. And anyways, let's talk a little bit about the toxicity in Overwatch and stuff like this. Now, when I want to talk about the toxicity in Overwatch, I feel like it's really not as bad as some people are saying. Now, of course, there are going to be some games where people just completely yell at you, people just complain at you. But as far as, compared to other games, I don't feel like it's really nearly as bad. And I feel like one of the reasons that makes this game not really even be able to be as toxic is that you can't see other people's scores. And while this can be kind of annoying, I feel like this is probably a thing that is very actually healthy, at least for the community, and kind of makes the ability for people to rage go down a lot. Now, if you play a game like League, which I've played a ton of, and let's say that you're doing really bad in a game, it's super easy to tell. If you're like 0-3, you're just sucking at League of Legends, well, your teammates can super easily tell that. They can see your score, and they can complain. They can say you suck, you aren't doing well at all. While in Overwatch, sure, they can say, like, I have gold medals, but they can't say that you don't at least have silver medals. They can't really tell. They can't know if you're that bad, or if you're doing way too well. So they can kind of complain when they're watching you, I guess. They can kind of say, you're not going in when I want you to. Other than that, though, really, people don't yell at each other as much as I have heard in a lot of other games, and I feel like this is something that I actually do kind of appreciate. Of course, it is kind of annoying not be able to tell people stats, be able to tell how well they're doing. At the same time, though, I feel like it really does help in the game. When you're playing a lot of these other games, where you can see stats, where people can actually complain about exact things about, how you're playing, I feel like people get a lot more toxic. If they see somebody, maybe they have like 7 kills or so, a lot of times when they're playing with a teammate that maybe isn't doing nearly as well, they're going to complain. They're going to get super pissed, and they're just going to keep yelling at you by yourself. While I feel like when it's a team game, and especially like Overwatch where you can't see stats, sometimes people will get pissed at their whole team, but as far as the toxicity towards every single player singularity, I don't feel like it's nearly as high, and I'm kind of glad for that. It makes it not nearly as toxic. And while still not every single game is going to be amazing, of course, you can't really expect that in a competitive game in the first place. Not every game is going to be amazing. Not every game, everyone's going to be happy. I mean, think about yourself for a second. Have you been happy about every competitive game you've played? Have you ever blamed somebody in a competitive game? Maybe gotten a little bit angry about a person in a comp game? I'd beg to say at least a lot of people have. I don't want to, blame people, but I'm saying a lot of people have. I've surely gotten mad in a few games. So you can't really get way too pissed off when other people are getting mad as well. Now, another thing that I feel like does at least make this game less toxic than other games is the fact that a lot of people actually use the voice chat, or at least a decent amount. I get at least 1 to 2 people per game, and when you're using the voice chat, people usually give you more constructive criticism than just saying, I hate you, you suck. I had this a lot while playing League. I'd be playing games, people would just complain, they'd yell at you, and they'd type in chat, and they just kind of get super pissed off. But when you're talking to people, really just talking to them, I feel like people have a lot more time that they'll be like willing to see how you're doing, kind of give you some actual tips to improve, or at least to do better in your game, tell you to switch characters, and just say, instead of just saying, you're terrible. There's a lot more communication in using, communication, and I feel like that really shows in this game. That also kind of showed a little bit when I played a bit of Dota 2. So I feel like that's another thing that does kind of make this game feel a little bit better than some other competitive games. Now, of course, by saying this, I'm saying that this community really isn't, the worst thing in the world. I'm not a doomsayer, I guess you could say. But we do have some big problems. One of the main problems that I also do see very often is that people either get really, kind of try-hardy, they get really angry at their teammates when they aren't, the best players. Sometimes people just simply won't be as good as you, and that's okay. You don't have to get pissed off at someone just because they aren't doing well. Of course, it makes sense for you to be a little bit angry, be a little bit disappointed that they aren't as good as someone on the enemy team, but that's really no reason to get super angry at them. Of course, over time, they're going to go down in ranks, and they're eventually going to hit where they have to be, and you really shouldn't be way too mad about that. On the other hand, if someone is trolling, of course, that makes sense to get a little bit angry, but I feel like a lot of times people in our community do just get angry when one of the players on their team just isn't as good as the player on the other team. And I don't feel like that's really the biggest reason to get angry. If someone's trying their best and doing as best they can to try to win, they shouldn't get yelled at simply because they aren't as amazing as somebody on the other team. Now, I guess another really big problem about community that really just kind of goes to every competitive game is the fact that if you're playing someone that isn't meta, a lot of people are going to get pissed off at you. A lot of people are going to, you know, kind of yell at you. But this does kind of make sense, as a lot of times when people are playing non-meta heroes, they don't do very well. It's really hard to play these people. It's hard to play them well. It's hard to carry with them. It's hard to even do as well as a meta character if they play averagely. So I can kind of see that. While I don't agree with it at all, it's not really the most cancerous thing in the world for people to just want you to play somebody that's a little bit better right now. I don't agree with that stance, but I do see why it happens, and I don't feel like it's as bad as some of the other things that have happened. Now, overall, I will say this game is somewhat toxic. You know, every game is somewhat toxic. If you add competitiveness to a game, it will become just a little bit more toxic. I have a really good example of this, and that is, of course, Splatoon for the Nintendo Wii U. Splatoon was a super casual game. Everyone was, you know, pretty nice, pretty happy. They added a competitive mode, which I feel like they shouldn't have been, at least in that game. And a lot of people got angry. A lot of people just kind of started to get pissed at the game and went really, really kind of try-hardy. And the game got a little bit more toxic than it used to be. I feel like that just kind of happens with competitiveness. Now, personally, I do really love competitive game modes. They make you try harder. They make you try to become better at the game. And I do enjoy them, but you do have some downsides that come with that. And it does allow you to become a little bit more angry when you lose. With that said, though, I feel like overall with this game, it's not as bad as a lot of people are saying. The game is playable, the game is fun, and they really have made it possible for you to mute people that are really mean to you, to block people that really aren't being the nicest to you, and as well with that, you can prefer players that are being nice to you, that are being really good team players. They're giving you a lot of things that you can do. Blizzard is giving you a lot of options. I feel like a lot of people just aren't taking these options, and I would recommend that take them for yourself if you can. Of course, if you're feeling really, you know, getting attacked by someone, if you feel the community is super toxic, try to get rid of those people. Try to get them out of your life, and if someone's just doing it in a game, ignore them. It's okay. Not everyone has to love you. If you aren't the best player in the game, that's okay. Just play the best you can, have the most fun you can, and just keep going from there. Overall, though, I would say definitely for sure, this is not the most toxic game I've ever played. I've had a lot worse games. I've had games where every single game, if you lose, if you aren't doing the best, people will get so angry at you. The post-lobby chat will be so toxic, and it'll be almost unbearable to play. That was my experience with League of Legends and Bronze for a while. It was terrible. This game is definitely not as bad as that. Sure, some people do get angry. I feel it's not every single game, though. I've had a lot of experience. I've had over like 200, 300 games on different accounts. I've had a lot of experience. Sometimes the community, sure, some people may be angry, and some people may not be the, you know, the most positive thing in the world, but I don't feel like that's the majority, and I feel like the game still is very playable, still is very fun, and of course, if you're feeling the community isn't the best, then you should try to change it yourself. You should try to be nice, try to improve the community yourself, as it won't just magically improve if you just hope it. You gotta try to do something for it. You gotta try to bring out some of those positive vibes, try to, you know, allow people to play what they want to play, and not get as angry when people just aren't doing the best. There's a lot of stuff that you can do in this game, a lot of ways that you can try to help the community at least a little bit, and of course, that's just my own opinion on this. Now, with this said, I do have a lot of experience at different levels, but that experience may not completely match some of you guys's. I've heard a lot of people where every single game is really toxic, and I know that that can happen. With that being said, if that does happen to you, make sure to just ban everybody that's really being rude to you, silence your mic, leave the group chat if people are being super obnoxious. That's okay. You aren't going to be punished for blocking people. You aren't going to be punished for silencing people. And once you do that, you're going to be able to have a lot better of experience. And as well with this, you can make the community feel a lot better if you're playing with friends. You can kind of, you know, make a little bit of jokes off people being rude to you, and it makes overall the game be a lot funner, at least in my own opinion. And that's just what I'm going to say. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Tell me your own experiences down below, and tell me what you personally think about this community. Is it the worst community you've ever played in, or have you felt a little bit of worse stuff in your past? Personally, I have a lot worse, but I want to hear your own guys' opinions. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Tell me what you're thinking down below, and as always, have a wonderful day.